Good morning, I hope you're well. Welcome to Paul Outdoors. Nick and I have landed in the beautiful Monmouthshire village of Skenfrith, Wales, on the borders of England and Wales. There's a cuckoo to my right and left. It's just after 7 AM and the plan today is for us to visit 3 Norman built castles which were built shortly after the Norman invasion and conquest of England in 1066. So we're just heading now to the way marker which will point us in the direction of those 3 castles. So we're going to just walk out of Skenfrith now and then make our way to Grosmont and then to White Castle or Llantilio Castle via Graig Syfyrddin or Edward's Tump and visit the trigg there. And then once we come down off Edward's Tump, we're going to go to White Castle and then on to Skenfrith Castle and back to where we've just landed in the van. We come in peace, unlike the Normans of 1066. So it's going to be quite a task today, 20 miles in one day, in one hit, so we'll see how we get on, and you're welcome to tag along with us. Just come through Upper Dufferin Wood now, heading to Little Cross and Grosmont, which you can see in the distance there, where our first Norman castle sits and lies. So we're going to get to Grosmont, look at the castle and maybe mention a few bits and pieces about who the Normans were and why they arrived in England. Now that's the way to negotiate a style. I've fallen off 3 already today. I'm going to attempt to do this one with one hand. And these lovely footpath steps. Great.
He's only fallen off 3 stars, he's not on the camera.
Well, you've only had your head in your hands 3 times as I've tumbled off 3 stars, mate. Well, you know, these new boots, I've got no ballast in me socks either. In the right ballpark.
Wow. What's that
I don't know. It's a laser, mate, we're going to get zapped. Isn't it? I'm liking this. Path to the right. Coming to join me? You haven't had enough. Welcome to Grosmont. Here we are now in the main part of the village of Grosmont. It's a beautiful, beautiful village. Village shop, the post office, still going strong. We have the local pub, the Angel Inn. No doubt got a few stories and tales to tell. Ah, Grosmont, best kept village 2003. And there she is, Grosmont Castle, built by the Normans in and around 1066 AD, following the the Norman invasion and Norman conquest of England. And one of 3 castles, along with Skenfrith Castle, White Castle, that also in 1135 were brought together in or under one lordship by King Stephen to repel and quell Welsh uprisings in the borders. And it's appropriate now, I think, to just mention a little bit about who the Normans actually were, and my understanding of it. So what I can gather, the Normans were Vikings from Scandinavia, specifically Norway, who settled in northern France in 911 AD. They settled there after an agreement with the French aristocracy. Agreement between the Viking leader Rollo, the first Duke of Normandy, and the French aristocracy. And as Norsemen or Northmen, the area that they lived in and occupied became known as Normandy, and the Vikings became known as Normans from Normandy. Just looking now at the ruined southwest tower. We'll need to get into foothold. 1066, William the Conqueror, or William the Second Duke of Normandy, who succeeded Rollo, made a claim for the crown of England, become the King of England, which was rejected, and he then invaded England and landed on the Kent coast during September of 1066 before marching towards Hastings. And the Battle of Hastings, the famous Battle of Hastings, took place where William defeated King Harold. William then marched on London and was crowned King of England on the 25th of December 1066 on Christmas Day at Westminster Abbey. We have a bandit appearing now any second. There he is. Load up the hot oil. I'm pleased to say that entry into Grosmont Castle today is free. It's Tuesday. I'm sure that applies to every weekday. Can't confirm whether that holds true for weekends. I have to look into that, but well done to Cadw, the Welsh Government's Historical Environmental Service, for allowing access to these wonderful ancient monuments free of charge, at least during the week. And I'm pretty sure that applies to White Castle, Llantilio Crossenny Castle and Skenfrith as well. So credit where credit's due. Well, we've now headed out of Grosmont and from the castle and met the Vicar of Grosmont, not the Vicar of Dibley. He was very nice, put us on the right track because we followed the waymark sign, and then we had a dilemma because it went down into some sort of habitation and weren't sure which way to go. So the Vicar kindly pointed us in the right direction. And we've now climbed for probably about 10 minutes straight up as we left Grosmont. So just to add that this walk is variable, very up and down, and quite testing in places. Doable, not hard.
And that's the first divine intervention on one of our walks? Yes,
as Nick said, first divine intervention that we've experienced so far. But you know, who knows, there might be some more around the corner.
A couple of ambiguous junctions coming out of Grosmont, isn't there?
Yeah, it's quite tricky, isn't it?
Yeah.
We're finding we're having to stop and just consolidate our position to make sure we take the right track. which is one of the lessons we've learned this last 5 or 6 months to do on a regular basis. Easy to be pig-headed and assume you're on the right road, and then get quite some way off your route. No sheep know something that we don't, mate. And we've noticed this beautiful field maple. It's absolutely huge as far as field maples go. Usually sort of fairly diminutive in comparison to the oaks, the ash, the limes, etc. of this world, but this is probably the biggest field maple I've seen for quite some time. It's huge. So closing in on the trigg of Graig Syfyrddin, which stands at 423 metres above mean sea level. Graig Syfyrddin, otherwise known as Edward's Tump. We can't resist a trigg, and we're there, mate. Another one, yes. Just taking in the views, which are usually, when it's clear, you can see the mountains of South Wales, the Beacons, Black Mountains, the Welsh Marches, Forest of Dean and beyond. Today though, Tuesday the 5th of May, sorry June, Tuesday the 5th of June 2018, not so fortunate, but a great experience nonetheless.
Oi. Nick! Oh, you won't be able to move. Nick, wait for me! How have you found it so far?
Exhilarating, mate. Exhilarating.
Yeah.
Challenging though with these way markers. We've had to stop a few times and scratch our heads, haven't we? And
yeah.
Sort of try and make sense of it, because sometimes they're not there, and they're not. Sometimes they're not where they should be, and they're not pointing in the right direction. But we're on track. We've got the Skirrid, mate. We've got the Skirrid to look out upon while we're enjoying our coffee and.
And you know what's beyond Skirrid?
What's beyond Skirrid? Tell me, go on.
His beloved Sugar Loaf.
Loaf.
Yeah.
I can't see it, mate. Where is it? Where is it? Can't see it today. I know it's there. That's enough for me. I know it's there. Coffee and lunch complete. We are heading down towards the road with the familiar sight of Skirrid Vawr in front of us, and we have the Sugar Loaf emerging from the mist behind it. So over Nick's head, yes, which is a common occurrence on these trips. Here we go, mate, we're going left. Somebody's new drone has gone belly up. I think they need to invest in the latest model, mate. Another interlude on our way to White Castle, and I wasn't going to mention it. Promised Nick I would.
I mentioned it first, to be fair.
Oh, did I?
I did.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, so
okay.
that's fine.
Thank you for that. Bailed me out there.
No, I could see you were looking a bit sad, so
No,
you needed it.
sad,
You need it in a walk.
My chin had dropped, didn't it?
Mm.
But what do we have behind me? I'm not even gonna name names. I'm just gonna leave it at that. Leave it at that. Okay, we've just come through the churchyard of St Mary's Church, which is what we're looking at now. Just looking at my map, Llanfair Grange, I believe. Sorry, Llanfair Cilgoed, and the lovely vicar rector at Grosmont said that there was a kettle inside that we were welcome to help ourselves to make a brew. And as the sign says, Church in Wales, St Mary's, Llanfair Cilgoed, Crucio, you're welcome to stop and rest and to make hot drinks here, but at your own risk. Don't think we can be trusted, Nick, to do that, do you? Probably not. We wish you God's blessing on your life journey and hope that you will pass this way again. We certainly hope so too, and thank you very much. So anybody doing this walk, Llanfair Cilgoed Church, St Mary's Church, there is a kettle, water and mains electricity at your disposal. Llanfair Cilgoed Grange. Prior to the 13th century there stood in the field below this church a Celtic hermitage, hence the name of Cilgoed, meaning the cell in the wood. At intervals between 1201 and 1243, Hubert de Burgh, referred to later, gave the hermitage and lands here to the Cistercian monks of Dore. They transferred it into a farm or grange in Cistercian nomenclature, and that name of Llanfair Grange endures to this day. The Hermitage Chapel, enlarged or rebuilt, became a chantry chapel where for many years monks and later perhaps chaplains celebrated the Eucharist for the souls of the founders and beneficiaries of the chapel and grange. What a lovely place. And the lady was true to her word, bless her. There's the kettle and amenities. We're not going to take advantage of that today, but maybe in the future, and anybody else that comes this way, please take note. Still closing in on White Castle, and we have stumbled across the residue of a meteorite shower. It's certainly no Stonehenge or Avebury, and we can't fathom out why a collection of rocks of that size, they must each be over a ton, are positioned in that field the way they are. Here is an interesting an aside, painted by prisoner of war. Rudolf Hess, Hitler's right-hand man, came here to paint during World War II, captured in Scotland whilst on a secret mission. Hess was held as a prisoner of war near Abergavenny. For health reasons he was allowed to visit the area to walk, paint and sketch. And we have reached the castle. Please let me in. Do I have to use force, or are you just going to let me come in? Peacefully, thank you. Thank you, Nicholas. Second Norman castle of the day. And we're also very close to the Offa's Dyke path, which is quite nice. So it says White Castle. White Castle's name derives from the coat of white rendering which once covered its outer walls. Together with nearby Skenfrith and Grosmont, it was one of 3 castles built by the Normans as they won control of this area of North Gwent. The earliest parts now surviving are the 12th century curtain walls of the inner ward. In the latter 13th century, the castle was extensively refortified. A new twin-towered gatehouse and 4 further towers are added to the inner curtain, and the wall of the outer ward also dates from this time. one of the things that was going through my mind, and I was talking to Nick about it a little bit when we were at Grosmont, and still going through my mind now whilst we look around White Castle, Llantilio Crossenny Castle, is that these stone castles were originally built out of earth and timber. They were motte and bailey castles, relatively quick to build. But as time went on, the locals learned that they were relatively easy to set fire to and burn down. So the Normans converted a large number of the original Motte and Bailey design castles to stone keep castles, which were easier to defend, not so easy to attack and overcome. And Grosmont Castle, White Castle here now, and Skenfrith, which we'll see later, are examples of stone keep castles. And I believe that Chepstow Castle was the first stone keep castle that the Normans actually built in Wales. So that's to the south of Monmouthshire, a little bit further afield. So just fascinating to think how these magnificent castles evolved, and what a daunting sight they must have been through the eyes of the local Anglo-Saxons back then, the like of which they would probably have never seen or ever seen before. Strategic place there for weapon placement. Archers, no doubt. I don't want to be on the end of anything sharp raining down on me from that vantage point. That's for sure. Slits in the castle walls are called loopholes. Still on our way back now to Skenfrith via a redirected route due to footpath closures of the Three Castles walk. It's not been the best signed walk we've been on. It is in places, but in some it does leave you guessing and scratching your head somewhat. But it is what it is.
Watch him, mate. Not the best style, is he?
He's a bit rickety. Rickety Styles. Did he play for Spurs?
He was discovered by Simon Cowell, wasn't he?
Was he? Rickety Styles. Couldn't sing a note in tune, apparently.
I like this path.
Yes, this is nice, this. Oh.
Something else to get up it.
Full faults. First refusal.
Harvey Broom.
Harvey Broom. Harvey Smith.
Harvey
What's the other one? Shockamola. Yeah, the walk has actually been extended a fair bit, probably by a matter of possibly up to 4 or 5 kilometres, a couple of miles, 2.5 miles, due to footpath diversions that we didn't know about. So we've had to negotiate those, and it wasn't that easy. And Monmouthshire County Council have put those diversions in place, not just the Three Castles walk, but many other footpaths in this area, due to safety work being carried out on the power pylons along the ridge there. Hopefully the camera's picking them out, and that work is going to be going on, so the information says, on some of the waymarker posts until probably the back end of August of this year, 2018. So Anybody planning on doing this walk, just be aware that there are diversions in place from the White Castle section through to Skenfrith, which is where we're heading to now. As we get ever closer to Skenfrith and Skenfrith Castle, I thought I would share some thoughts on the influence that the Normans had on English culture and society. Starting with the Domesday Book, or the Day of Reckoning as the locals called it. The Domesday Survey, that I believe was completed in 1087, catalogued all the land of England and all its assets, which William then distributed to his loyal knights, his loyal lords and barons to reward their loyalty during the invasion of England. Those lords and barons then distributed those land assets to the Norman knights, who in turn distributed the land that they held to the locals. And the locals worked the land and lived on the land and paid homage to the king and swore allegiance to the king in exchange. So that was a feudal system of government that was introduced. As French speakers, the Normans also had a massive influence on the language in England and Britain, and the English legal system has been influenced and was influenced dramatically by the French language, as the English language itself, with the incorporation of many French words, as is evident today. And from a religious point of view, the Normans, being Christian, agreed to convert the pagan Anglo-Saxons to Christianity as a condition of the Pope blessing the invasion of England. Sorry, somebody losing control of their dog. And William duly obliged, converted the pagans to Christianity, and many Norman churches were built, and many of them can be seen today. Back at Skenfrith, where we started at 7 o'clock this morning. It really is a beautiful village. Geraniums, perennial geraniums and shrub roses. Hello fella. Afternoon or evening, not sure which it is. Here she is, Skenfrith Castle. Steps again. Look at that. Wow. Skenfrith, Grosmont and White Castle were all founded by the Normans probably before 1100 AD to control the lands they had won in North Gwent. At this date the defences would have been of earth and timber. In 1201 all three castles were granted to Hubert de Burgh, a powerful marcher lord who rose to become King's just seer. He completely rebuilt Skenfrith in stone as you see it now, probably between 1228 and 1232. Hubert's castle consists of a roughly rectangular area enclosed by a high curtain wall and a wide moat outside it, a tower at each corner and a strong circular keep in the middle. All wall tops, were fortified by projecting wooden fighting galleries. Entry was through a now vanished gateway behind you, or behind me. Over to the right was a range of apartments with great hall and private quarters. The kitchen was on the left, just beyond the steps to the water gate, and there were doubtless other timber frame buildings elsewhere. So entry was through the gateway there, and over to the right was a range of apartments apparently. So Skenfrith Castle, the third in our three castles walk. To the van, mate.
To the van.
Well, Nick and I are back in the van. We are following a double-decker red bus into Hereford. We've just been eulogising about the 22 miles we've just covered. I still think it's a little bit more than that, but we ain't going to argue over a few miles. Three Castles walk in Monmouthshire in Gwent, absolutely fantastic. We stumbled across some footpath diversions which you'll probably hear about in the main body of the video, but we negotiated those. Those added a little bit of head scratching and extra kilometres onto the journey, but it was all good. We didn't get lost. Found our way back to the start, which was Skenfrith, and we're now almost back home, travelling through Hereford. So hopefully you've enjoyed the walk. You tagged along. It was a long one. Not sure as I sit here saying this how long the video is going to be. We've got plenty of footage. If you like the video, please give us a thumbs up. If you didn't like it, by all means give it a thumbs down, they all count. If you already subscribed, thank you very much, we really appreciate it. If you don't subscribe, please consider subscribing, because that really gives us a boost. And we will look forward very much to seeing you
See you on the next one.
in the next one. Thank you very much.